What is going on, guys? DragonTamerBlayde here, back with some more Elder Scrolls Legends, and as most of you guys are probably aware, the test server event has launched for Houses of Morrowind, which means all of the rest of the cards have been revealed. So I wanted to go through the rest of the cards that I have not talked about yet, and kind of give my thoughts, some plans, stuff like that. And we're going to start with Strength today, and there'll be a video for each color, and then probably one for tricolors and neutrals. But let's get started. First card is a new zero-cost action called Bushwhack, with the effect a friendly creature ignores guards and it can attack creatures in any lane this turn. So this is essentially the Blood Dragon effect. I don't think most decks are really going to care about this card, besides potentially aggro decks. Anytime an aggro deck has more opportunities to skip over a guard, it's probably pretty great for them. But other than that, I don't see it getting a ton of use. Then we've got Ashlander Zealot, a 1-cost 1/2 Dark Elf, with the ability Summon, Battle an Enemy Creature. Now, at 1 cost, this is only really useful if you're going second-ish, and your opponent goes first-ish, and they play a 1 health 1-drop or 1 health 2-drop that you can attack on turn 1 or 2. So it's a very specific situation where this card is useful. And honestly, this doesn't accomplish very much that a normal 1/1 with charge or 2-cost 1/1 with charge wouldn't accomplish anyway. The best thing that I can think of for this card would be if your opponent's playing tokens and they lead with Scouting Patrol, you can take out a token from one lane and then contest the token in the field lane with this. Other than that, I don't think it's that great. Then we've got another 1-cost, Corpus Disease. Silence a creature, then give it +2/+0. I think this is another card that aggro is going to enjoy. It does things like, it's actually very flexible. It can silence an opposing guard. Yeah, you're giving it +2 attack, but usually if you're going to silence that guard, it's because you're pushing for lethal. You can also, if your opponent shackles one of your big creatures, you can silence those shackles and buff it in the process. So it's a pretty flexible card. I think it is better than it looks like on the surface. I guess we'll see how it ends up, though. Next, we've got the Dagoth Dagger. It's a 1-cost 2/1 with Breakthrough. So I could see this replacing Steel Scimitar in a lot of aggressive decks. You lose that 1 health that Steel Scimitar provides, which isn't negligible, but I think those aggressive decks that want to be pushing face can appreciate Breakthrough more often than they can appreciate 1 health. So I think this is a very good card, and I think some decks will definitely be using it. Then we got the Serethi Scion. We've already seen this card revealed to us before. 1-cost 1/1 with Rally. Not super great, but if you can get it down on turn 1, it doesn't get contested. Even if you go face once, this card becomes a pretty great value, buffing something in your hand, and then everything after that is just kind of hoping for a snowball effect. Then we got Fighters Guild Hall, a 2-cost support. Whenever a friendly creature takes damage on your turn, give it +2/+0. So that's things like Skaven Pyromancer, a Firepot Spider that you trade in. You can Rapid Shot your own creature for a card and giving it +2. I think Direwolf has tried to push this kind of warrior-ish meta before of self-damage with, like, Gristlehide Dreg to an extent, Brasilisk for sure. You got things like Breton Conjurer, stuff like that, where you kind of want to be damaging yourself, although I don't think this would trigger Breton Conjurer, but just those kind of synergistic effects. I don't think this has quite enough support to really be a thing yet. There's not enough cards that really reward you for taking damage. Fearless Northland is another one that comes to mind. Maybe there's something there, but I still don't think there's quite enough just yet. Then we've got the Ornery Kagudi. It's a 2-cost 3/2 with Breakthrough. It's another thing Wild Beast Caller can roll. It's another thing that Eldergleam Matron can roll for you. This is basically a rampaging Minotaur without charge. I think it's okay. It'll probably be a better arena card than it is a regular card. But if more Beast and Animal Synergy takes off, keep your eye on this card. Then we've got the Dagoth Oathman. These Oathman cards are very interesting. They're kind of like ally effects, but when you summon, if you have one of the 2 cards in play, you gain that effect. And you can gain both. So if you summon the Dagoth Oathman and you have an Agility and Intelligence card in play, this card gains both effects, which is +2/+2, so it'd be a 3-cost 5/5, which plays very much into a lot of the 5-cost or 5 power matters. Also 5 health matters for some cards, but you're not really going to be triggering that very often with this. But I think it's a decent card. I think the Oathman cards in general are super interesting, and a lot of them are very powerful. This is probably arguably one of the weaker ones, and this is still a pretty strong card, I think. Then we got the Lao Lao Sharpshooter. We've already seen that one. I'm not going to talk about that card very much, but Plot is I think, a very underrated mechanic. I've played, I have, as you can see, I've been testing around with a Plot/Rally deck, and it has some pretty crazy combo potential. And one of the cards that shines in that deck is this next one right here, the Lower Canton Smith. 3 cost 2/2 with Plot, equip a friendly creature with +2/+2 Scimitar. So a 2/2 for 3 usually isn't that good, so you're always going to want to be triggering the Plot effect, but it really can mess with your opponent's head, and kind of, they'll think they have a safe guard out there, or force you to take an even trade, and then you drop this guy down and buff something +2/+2, and then you want to take in a favorable trade, and you've advanced your board position even more. I think this is a super flexible, super good card. I think one of the favorite cards I've had of playing with the new cards for just one day. I think this has been one of the all-stars of the decks I've made. Moving on, we've got the Redoran Battle Spear. It's a 3 cost 1/3, which not that great for the cost. It's okay, it's not that great. We have Hackwing Feather, which is 1/3 with Regenerate for 3, I believe. But this also gives you Rally, which is way more relevant than Regenerate, I believe. If the 3 cost for Rally is relevant, I'm not sure yet. It's a little expensive for Rally, I think. But if a Rally deck winds up much more fine-tuned, maybe this winds up making the cut. But if you're looking for more Rally in your deck, I think this next card is something that is going to be slightly more oftenly played. You've got a 4 cost 2/3, which the stats for cost is not great, but it's got Charge and Rally. So you're guaranteed to at least proc your Rally once. Maybe you set up a decent trade with this so you can try and get at least one more attack in. But basically this is just trying to further push your Rally, and you're paying extra now to push that +1/+1 guaranteed into your hand. Okay, next up we've got the Ash Berserker. 4 cost 4/3. At the end of your turn, if you have a creature with 5 power or more, draw a card. So this is a bit of a win more card. Not win more, but kind of keep your... If you're ahead, it's going to try and keep you ahead. So you've got a 4 cost 4/3, which isn't that great for the stats. It's just okay. Probably a little bit less than okay. Probably below average. But being able to draw a card at the end of your turn, as long as you're keeping your board alive and keeping 5 cost creatures on the board, is a very, very good effect. So even if you can trigger this at least one time, so if you drop this on turn 4 and you happen to have a 5 attack creature on the board, and one trigger of this effect, I think, makes this card worth it. Anything else after that becomes amazing. Next, we've got False Incarnate, a 4 cost 5/4, so this is better stats for the cost. And it has a pretty insane effect if you're playing an aggressive deck. Your opponent can't heal. That's it. Period. No matter what they do, they can't gain health. So that's pretty bonkers, I think. I think it kind of speaks for itself, but I think it's a very powerful card. Next up, we've got Fighters Guild Steward, 4 cost 3/3, and the summon effect is a friendly creature with 5 or more power battles an enemy creature. So I think the way you're going to want to use this card is probably in a more control-y type of deck, something like that. I'm not really sure. But assuming you have that 5 power creature on the board, there's 2 main ways you're going to use it. If I have a 5 power creature on the board from previous turn, I'm going to swing first, either face or make a trade. Then I'm going to play my Fighters Guild Steward to make that 5 attack creature wind up trading with something else as well. Or if you're in the late game and you're kind of playing onto an empty board and your opponent has something you really need removed, if you have the Magicka, you play your 5 attack creature, and then you can play this right after to make that trade with something. And there's some more cards that I think that can really play into that later. Next, we've got what I think is one of the best cards of the entire expansion for specific decks, but Imposter's Mission. Summon an imposter with power and health equal to the power of your most powerful creature. What that means is, if I play a Bog Lurcher and it manages to survive, or if I play them both on turn 8, but in general, Bog Lurcher, 9 power, 1 health creature, basically the definition of a glass cannon, you're putting it all out there to try and get that 9 power. If I play Imposter's Mission, I get a 4 cost 9/9. Just like that. Ridiculous. Or your 4 cost Lumbering Ogrim. You get a 4 cost 7/7 if that's on the board. This is a ridiculously powerful card. It is so, so good. Then we've got Kimona Tong Heavy. The 5 costs 4/3 with plot, unsummon a creature in this lane with power less and Kimono Tong heavy. We've already seen this card before. I think it's better than I gave it credit for. I'm running it in my plot deck, and it's come in handy a lot for kind of forcing my opponent to have some tempo losses. And with some of these plot effects and some of the synergies we'll talk about later and some other cards, you have some very high tempo kind of combo swingy turns, and then this kind of reverses your opponent's tempo, so you're kind of, the net gain is even higher. It's a pretty good card, I think. Then we got the Fletcherfly Golem, 5 cost 5/5. Whenever this card takes damage and survives, summon a 2/2 Fletcherfly Swarm. So this is another card that kind of plays into that damage yourself mentality that I was talking about from before with the support. This is also, I think, a pretty good card to combo with Fighters Guild Steward. You can force this card to trade right away, or if this card traded, you got a 2/2, make it swing again, get another 2/2. I think it's a pretty good effect. I think it'll be really good in Arena. I don't know if it's going to make any constructed decks, but the effect itself is pretty powerful. Then we've got the Servant of Dagoth, a 5 cost 4/4, which is underwhelming, but with the 5 power matters effect, gives it +2/+2 in guard. So if you have a 5 power creature on the board, you're getting a 6/6 with guard for 5, which is pretty good, and I think most mid-range to slower decks will probably want to run something like that if you're going for a creature-based controller, board control, stuff like that. I think it's pretty powerful. Then we've got Stendarr's Hammer. We've got a legendary item. Basically, it is Dremora Markinaz's effect, so double the wielder's power and health, but with the caveat, the wielder can only attack creatures. So basically, you're turning one creature on the board into a super powerful board control tool. So, pretty decent card. I think it would have been, I don't know, I don't think it would have been okay without the wielder can only attack creatures. But this could even just do something as turn one of your guards into a gigantic guard that your opponent's going to have a way hard time getting over. So I think it's pretty cool. Then we've got Cliff Hunter, a Cliff Racer relative, 6 cost 3/3 with Prophecy, summon effect, battle an enemy creature. So you're obviously paying a lot for this card, if you play it from hand, that is, which is, again, I like Prophecies that are designed that way. If you're playing it from Prophecy, you're going to hope you can kill something with the 3 attack, or else this winds up being very underwhelming, and playing it from hand is underwhelming at all. I don't think this card is super great, but I don't know, maybe. Then we've got the Sharp-Eyed Ashcan, 6 cost 6/6 with plot, discard your hand, then draw 3 cards. So in general, most of the time, this effect is going to be dependent on your hand. So let's say I have 2 cards left in hand, I play my first card, then I combo Sharp-Eyed Ashcan, I discard nothing and draw 3 cards. This effect is amazing. Honestly, if you're discarding anything less than 3 cards, depending on the quality of the card you're discarding, the effect is good. So even 1 or 2 cards you're discarding, if they wind up being crappy cards or cards you don't want at that point in the game, late game cards, I don't know, you can discard them and draw 3 new cards. So I think it's a pretty powerful effect as long as you're triggering it at the right time. Then we've got the Scar Drill Master, which I think is a pretty awesome card. Obviously understated for the cost, but a 6 cost 5/5 with Rally is pretty good on its own, and it has the effect whenever this card rallies, you put a copy of the rallied creature into your hand with 1/1. So let's say I swing with this card and I'm buffing whatever. Let's say Hive Defender in hand. My Hive Defender becomes a 4/7, and I get another Hive Defender in my hand for free that also is a 4/7 from this card. This card is amazing at generating value. It's a rally powerhouse. I think this card is amazing. We've got Aspect of Hercene. I've talked about that before. No need to beat a dead horse. Pretty powerful card. Skips the last rune. That's pretty big. And then we've got the Red Year, a 10 cost unique action. It's obviously super slow, but deal 10 damage to each creature. So it's kind of like a double Dawn's Wrath in a sense. Most creatures are going to die from 10 damage. But the other thing I was thinking about, and it was brought up to me by Zombie Hunter on stream, that if you play Ancano, and Ancano manages to stick on the board, and you play this card, and your opponent has any kind of board presence, for the most part, this is going to be a 10 mana win the game. So I think that's a pretty awesome effect. And we got a lot of very fun, awesome effects inside of Strength this go around. But that's it for these Strength cards. We're going to go through the rest of these attributes in separate videos, so look forward to them if you want to see any of the other colors or cards or even tricolors, stuff like that. But yeah, that's going to be it for now, guys. As always, thank you all very, very much for watching. I'm DragonTamerBlayde, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.